So those are all the elements for the employee presentations. If those don't get everybody's buy-in after the merger, I don't know what will. You know, we should have the Collins Group folks bouncing off the walls after this presentation.
Well, I'll tell you, it looks fantastic. I'm not just saying that. It really does.
Thank you. You know, my staff and I really put a lot of time onto the materials. I believe it's going to go a long way in helping my people really get those folks down at the branch excited and on board.
It does look like a lot of work went into it. You know, Alan, let me just bounce something off you here, and if it's a problem, just say so.
Okay.
Here's a thought. Now, hear me out and then decide. I know that it's customary for your staff to make presentations of this sort.
Yeah.
Well, how would you feel if, in this case, you gave us the materials and my people handled the actual meetings?
Where's this coming from? Operations managers giving better presentation than my sales managers? I mean, you gotta be kidding me, right? I mean, you're gonna have to give me some pretty significant reasons for me to do something like that.
Fair enough. I know this is out of the ordinary, and I think skepticism is perfectly justified at this point. My challenge then is to give you a sensible explanation of why this approach might have some advantages and produce a better result for both of us. I'm willing to make my case if you're willing to listen.
Fire away.
Okay. I can see that this presentation is designed for real excitement, to really generate enthusiasm.
Good old rah-rah stuff.
Exactly. And that is precisely where we could fall on our own sword. We need to keep in mind that out of 1,700 of their employees, only about 100 are in sales. The remaining 1,600 are in line operations and manufacturing support. Now, I've met with them, and those people are scared. And in my experience, scared people get even more frightened in the face of a rah-rah speech. This is a case where my lower key operations managers might relate a little bit better to this particular audience. After all, the purpose here isn't the speech. The purpose here is gaining their trust, right?
Bob, you make a real good point. I mean, you've given me a lot to think about, and I do believe it's worth considering. I'm going to have to reanalyze this whole presentation because there is a lot of material in there in addition to the rah-rah stuff. And I feel it's important that all those points get covered.
There is a lot to think about, I know, and I can see where some careful analysis would help. There's no rush to this. Even so, I believe that if we studied this a little bit together, we should be able to break it down to just a few key points. I think it might save you some evaluation time if we took a few minutes right now and studied this together.
I have a few minutes. Let's go ahead and stick with it then.
Okay.
I'd like to tell you that we have a deal here because it does make sense. But there's one thing that worries me, and it worries me a lot, Bob.
Alan, if there's a concern, please raise it. I mean, if we can avoid a problem and deal with it, that's fine. If it's a showstopper and the deal's a no-go, I can live with that.
I've got to have some involvement with my sales force. Do you realize that my whole next year's budget and the budget of all of my sales managers is all based on this new business from the Collins Group? I mean, if we're left out of the loop on this, if we don't get to build a rapport with these folks, this could be very dangerous for me.
I can see that. Without any sales involvement, the risks are too big, and that's something that just has to be avoided.
Absolutely.
You know, there's a way to avoid that potential consequence. In fact, there may be several. The most obvious one
is to have my salespeople do part of the presentation with your operations managers.
That does make sense. Why don't we follow that premise and see where it leads?
All right.
Here.